Welcome to TS Lombard. I'm Ken Wattret, and with me is Jonathan Fenby, and we're here to talk about economic and political developments in France. Well, here we are, just a fortnight away from knowing the results of the first round of the presidential election, a keenly anticipated event for a wide variety of reasons. Jonathan, what are your latest thoughts?
Well, presents the French voters with the starkest choice they've had for more than 30 years. We've now, in reporting the election, become familiar, on the one hand, with Marine Le Pen, the National Front, protectionist, strong big state, defence of French jobs, getting out of the euro and possibly having a Brexit referendum on leaving the EU altogether. Against her, the main other contender, Emmanuel Macron, younger, 39 years old. He's really been the disruptor of the election campaign so far, ex-economics minister. But although he's a disruptor, he is liberal, committed to reforms, pro-European, and really in many ways the essence of, if you like, the reformist French establishment. On the other hand, we have the conservative François Fillon, who is committed to very serious structural economic reform, but who's lost a lot of ground after the scandal over payments from state funds to his wife. And then the recent rise over the last week or two of Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the hard left candidate, who, rather like Le Pen, would protect French jobs, would keep the welfare state going at full speed, would put 100% income tax on the rich, and would get out of the EU, the Eurozone certainly, and NATO. And he's been pushing up in the polls, equal with Fillon now, around 18%. So there's an awful lot to choose from there, with a lot of uncertainty, because a third of those polled say they haven't made up their minds yet how they're going to vote, and the projections are for a very high abstention rate of around 1/3.
And all this is happening, of course, against an improving economic backdrop. The economy is in transition, really, from consumer-driven growth. We had a fall in the oil price, beneficial impact on household real income growth, consumer spending, driving the economic expansion, and now the handover is taking place to the business sector. The external environment is improving, export prospects are improving as a result, combined with the fall in the exchange rate. That's a very positive development for France, particularly given that its exports have been relatively price sensitive. I guess the question now is, can that economic expansion be propelled to the next level by positive political developments, or will it be derailed by a surprise shock outcome in the presidential election?
Well, certainly if Le Pen wins, we're in relatively unknown territory, but it's known to the extent that this would be a very restrictive policy from the European point of view. She would set the printing presses running. She'd go back to the franc, away from the euro, big subsidies for jobs and for the welfare state. Macron is committed to reform, but in a fairly cautious way, including possibly talks with Germany over the fiscal side of the Eurozone arrangements, which would be probably a very positive thing. But both Macron and Le Pen have the difficulty that they don't have a strong following in Parliament. Le Pen has 2 MPs at the moment for the National Front. Macron has none. He could put together, he says, or he thinks, a coalition out of his own followers, the centrists, reformist socialists, liberal people on the right. But by its nature, a coalition would have a lot of different elements in it who might find it difficult to coalesce behind the programme of economic reform, structural reform, which France has needed for 20 or 30 years.
And thinking about how the economy and markets will respond to the different outcomes. I mean, the day after the second round of the election, if, as seems most likely at the moment, it's a Macron victory, that should add to the momentum, help business confidence, certainly, and would increase the likelihood that the French economy really picks up steam. I guess the problem, we've seen this before with prior elections, is implementation is very challenging, and the areas that really need to be addressed to improve the long run potential growth rate in France, or flexibility in the labour market, and so on. These things are very difficult to deliver. Thinking about the alternative scenario, a Le Pen victory, then that's a game changer. a major risk-off event both for domestic markets, given the implications for fiscal policy and the uncertainty over the political and economic outlook that would follow, and also, of course, the wider implications for the European project. So that would be a big issue for sovereign spreads in the euro area and probably have a very adverse impact on sentiment across the euro area and well beyond.
Absolutely, and I mean, to go back to the point I was making a moment ago, when markets realised that actually neither Macron nor Le Pen could put through their programmes on their own, and probably Le Pen not at all. I mean, I don't think many people would go into a coalition government with her. You're going to have a long period of uncertainty in France with the parliamentary elections 1 month after the second round of the presidential elections at the beginning of May. That's in June, the parliamentary elections. A lot of horse trading then, and the second biggest economy in the Eurozone really without an effective government for a long time, which obviously raises all kinds of problems. So this is going to be a story which will run and we'll be following it, I'm sure, at least for the rest of this year.